Hey everybody, welcome back to the No Vacancy Podcast. I'm still here. Yeah, it's Glenn Hausman. I'm surprised I survived because I've taken a journey to Mexico, and I thought I was going to be out having a great time, but dang, is it hot out there. So I thought I'd stay inside today, and I found myself Mr. Rick Colling. He's the global head of Homewood Suites by Hilton, where we happen to be staying and recording this video. How you doing, man?
I am fantastic. Couldn't be any better. Thanks for joining me on this adventure to Mexico.
Yeah, this is great. So we're in Monterrey, Mexico, and I got to tell you, never heard of this place. I only thought the only Monterey was in California.
Not indeed. Well, now you got number two.
I know. I'm really super embarrassed because this is a huge city and there's a whole lot going on. And, Hilton in general seems to be getting very fully involved. And we are sitting here at a combined dual branded property, not just a Homewood Suites by Hilton, but also a Hampton. I want to talk a little bit about this particular concept. But before we get into it, congratulations, because next month, 30 years of Homewood Suites by Hilton. How freaking awesome is that?
Yeah. We couldn't be happier. We have, the brand itself, tremendous legacy, right? So 30 years of phenomenal history, performance is outstanding. We've been on this roadshow journey to celebrate the anniversary of our 30th. We're going to celebrate the 500th Homewood next month.
Amazing.
So a lot of great things going on, a lot of exciting things happening with the brand. So it's a great year for us for sure.
So what's it like jumping into here? Because, you've got this 30th anniversary roadshow, but you haven't been around for 30 years. You've only been in Hilton 19 years, and in this position, just like the length of a pregnancy right there.
Well, you're right there. Yeah, well, I haven't thought about it in those terms, but
Well, I think about it because you've got to you've got to develop as the global brand leader, and then you've got to you've got your coming out now. I feel like at 9 months, because my hunch is you don't just jump into the role on day one and say, "Hey, this is amazing. I'm going to be really great at this." You've got to listen. You've got to learn.
You do.
You've got to do a whole lot of stuff before you could start to put your personal imprint on it, right?
Well, Glenn, you're right on, right? So one of the things that I've been around the brand for 18 years. And I think when you're around a brand, especially a legacy brand like Homewood, you grab a perception, right? So you've got your own internal thoughts regarding the brand. And what I realized when I took this role about 9 months ago is that I had to stop my perception of the brand and go out and learn.
That's fascinating. And I think that says a lesson for larger life, that sometimes we get so caught up in our own preconceived notions and expectations that we don't necessarily clearly see something.
Yep.
And it's really great to have a fresh eye. So how did you manage to eliminate from your mind everything that you thought you knew about this brand when you ascended to this position, to reorient yourself, re-educate yourself, and help to reaffirm what this brand is going to mean in the future?
Yeah, so one of the things I learned, Glenn, early on in my role was this is a beloved brand. So investors, key partners, developers, they absolutely adore this brand.
Right, and I hate to sound like a suck-up here, but it's one of the brands that I really liked a lot because early on, it connected with me because I suddenly realized, you could have more space in a place, It's a little bit more relaxed to me. I felt like I could live, sadly I'm going to use a bad pun, at home here, right? But that doesn't mean you could rest on your laurels.
No, not at all. Great legacy, great performance. So what I realized is I had to kind of scrape my perception of Homewood, and the only way I was going to achieve that was to go out and listen. So ask great questions and then truly shut up and listen, right? Which I think from a brand perspective, sometimes we do well. And that two-way conversation we tend to enjoy. But this was a real opportunity for me to select 17 of our most affluent management companies and owners and simply go to their offices and say, tell me about your perception of Homewood. Tell me about the 30 years of legacy. Tell me about where your perception moving forward is going to be. And I just asked 3 or 4 great questions, and 2 or 3 hours later, I had phenomenal insight from some of our most important owners and developers.
3 or 4 great questions, sadly 30, 40 really bad ones, but
there might have been 1 or 2 in the mix there somewhere, and I apologize for those that I did that to.
No, but I think that's an interesting point. So you go to all these places. You obviously spend a considerable amount of time doing this. So how did that story unfold? What was it like learning at the beginning and seeing your thoughts and perceptions of what this brand is changing right in front of your eyes?
Yeah, great. So there are certain pillars within this brand that are non-negotiable to investors, developers, owners. There's just non-negotiable, and to some degree to our customer base. All suites product, residential upscale. The phenomenal organic nature of service. So we need to, elevate the service levels of our assets by activating public space. We did a tremendous amount of questioning on the financial modeling of Homewood. How do we make it efficient, effective, not only to develop, but also from a consumer perspective, to make it have an emotional connection to the consumer. So when you're staying with a Homewood, there's an emotional attachment to the brand. The words don't come out that, hey, how was Homewood Suites and how was your stay? Oh, it was okay. Okay is not good enough, right? We wanted an emotional attachment. I felt connected. I felt like I belong. Your point earlier, I felt like I was, kind of this home environment. And we learned time and time again that those are the aspirations of our developers. So be efficient, be effective, stick with the pillars of the brand, learn from the legacy. But learning from the legacy will not dictate your success moving forward.
Right.
Let's have some flexibility in design. Let's have some flexibility in activation of public space. So it was a real great lesson for us in saying, okay, there are 3 or 4, 5 things that we can do moving forward that will really impact the journey for the next 30 years.
So let's get into that a little bit, because you have this brand. It's done well. Yeah. But any strong brand, if it stays the same over time, it will weaken as consumer choices change preferences change, whatever it might be. Yeah. So I think that's a pretty amazing observation that you had, that you, in a sense, needed to get out of your own way and kind of reinvent how you connect to the owners and operators out there to better connect to where we're headed as the consumer's going.
Well, and Glenn, I don't think anybody knows better than you know that the landscape of the extended stay environment is changing drastically day in and day out.
Day in and day out. And it's a market that I absolutely love. And not only are we seeing nearly 1/4 of the entire United States construction pipeline focused now on this type of product, but it's really something I think is winning with consumers. I think it's better meeting the way that people want to travel. And as we see this rise of what I talk about an awful lot, these digital nomads, people want to have more space to live because they're not necessarily renting an apartment or owning a home anymore.
Well, and you're a great example of exactly kind of, if you think in terms of you.
Right.
And I'm going to share a little bit about Glenn for maybe some of you that don't know. Father of 15-year-old twins.
That's right.
So if you were traveling, space is important to you.
That's right.
So the environment of Homewood Suites, for example, from a 2-room suite or a 1-bedroom suite, provides you the privacy you need when traveling with your family. But as a businessman or woman, it provides you with everything you need from a business perspective too. So Homewood's immersed itself in this kind of dual attractiveness of both leisure and business. And Monterey, here in Monterey, is a great example of that. They have the leisure component, and they have this phenomenal base of extended stay business, and it's performing exceptionally well. So I think Homewood, if it can capitalize on that and continue to capitalize on that moving forward, it'll continue its legacy of great performance.
Yeah, it really was. Speaking of great performance, this particular property, I don't know if I've ever seen a hotel so clean before. So clean, I was thinking of performing surgery down in the breakfast lounge this morning.
You probably could, and to shamelessly plug Monterey. We've got 494 Homewood Suites properties today,
right?
And this one is ranked number 1 in room cleanliness for the entire brand. So I might commit surgery this afternoon. Phenomenal job, and I had an opportunity to meet with the team this morning, and there is a sense of, again, this organic passion to just take care of guests, because when you're on the road for 9 days, the road is a lonely place. And the more that the hotel teams can do to accommodate the guests based on their special, stay pattern, their special occasion, this hotel over-indexes on that. It's a great example of the prototypical design in Monterrey, Mexico, and what we're taking through Cala.
So being that I started this conversation saying I'd never heard of Monterrey, Mexico, which I am now incredibly embarrassed about because it is such a gigantic city over here. What is driving the business here in this particular area of Monterey? I saw the tech corridor over there. As a matter of fact, last night I ran into a guy outside that was doing a big tech install. Yeah,
right. So you nailed it, right? So this hotel, perfect example of how to capitalize on both business mix. So if you think in terms of SPAR, which is that, extended stay per available room. So 69 suites here at the Homewood Suites. 45% of those every single night of the week are consumed by extended stay. Their number 1 account, 9 nights length of stay.
Wow!
So it's a beautiful mix. So you get you don't get the influx of peaks and valleys as it relates to occupancy. That stable base just allows you the opportunity to make make the hotel perform exceptionally well.
Right, and that's another reason why I love the extended stay product from an ownership perspective. Instead of having to go out and find 30 guests that are going to stay one night apiece, if you could get them to stay 5, 6, 7 nights, then you're only talking about 5 or 6 guests instead of 30. And even if it takes 2 or 3 times as much effort to get them, you're still far ahead.
Glenn, people ask me all the time, what's the right percentage of SPAR?
Right.
And I don't think you dictate that for each individual hotel. If it's at the right rate for the right length of stay, go ahead and book it up.
Right. Because
it's beneficial as it relates to the GOP margins, right? Less check-ins, less check-outs, less consumer of the product while you're cleaning rooms. I mean, it's just a great equation for great profitability for the asset.
So how did you wind up in the position of global head? You know, I feel like, Rick, we don't know enough about you. You're somebody that I feel like I've known for a while, but I'm not quite sure when you popped into my consciousness.
Yeah.
And you seem to have emerged fully formed from behind the scenes. What's going on there?
I was birthed this way.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. No, that's a horrifying thought. So born in England, lived there till I was 18 years old, and then
what part?
Liverpool, Blackpool, Manchester area, and loved growing up in the era of punk rock and all of that great music.
Nice.
And then my dad moved to Kalamazoo, Michigan, of all places, when I was 18 years old.
And you went with them?
Well, I tried not to, but he said, "Hey, come on over for 6 weeks and see what you think." And the rest is history. I fell in love with the States. Fell in love with Kalamazoo, went to Western Michigan University on, albeit a theater major. So I was going to be an actor. It didn't quite work out for me, Glenn. So here we are having fun.
Well, I think you're doing a great job on this right now. Who would have really thought that he actually can't stand me? You're doing such a great job.
I love you, brother. There you go.
You see, he's doing it again.
Acting.
All right. So, what was your favorite punk rock show that you went to?
I saw, back in the day, I saw the Sex Pistols live.
Nice.
And I mean, that was, it was all piercings, and it was absolutely incredible back in the day. But I wouldn't want to live through that era again. It was a tough time in England, and, half the time you ran for your life on weekends.
Yeah.
And, the States has afforded me a much better opportunity for a quality of life. So it's been
when
terrific.
you came over here to the United States, which is a pretty awesome thing to do. I can't imagine being 18 years old and moving to another country, right? That's pretty incredible. So how did you get into the hotel world?
So I went to Western Michigan University and, of course, worked my way through school. So the best way to work my way through school was to say if I could get the 3 to 11 shift at a local hotel, it was totally conducive to my school schedule. So I worked at the front desk of one of our competitors and learnt everything I needed to know for 6 months to a year at the front desk of a hotel in Kalamazoo, Michigan, of all places.
So you're probably an accidental hotelier. You probably didn't say, I'm going to get this job and it's going to be my career.
Absolutely no intent in getting onto this business. In fact, I knew nothing about it and didn't go to school for it either.
Wow. So when did you first fall in love with it?
I always think whatever job you do in the hospitality business, do it to the best of your ability.
Right.
So I had the fortunate opportunity to work with a young lady who had been in the business for a number of years, and she taught me just about everything So it was really cool, So imagine this, Glenn, front desk, rainy Kalamazoo morning.
Right.
And as guests are departing, we have 2 umbrellas behind the front desk, and we are doing renditions of Singing in the Rain. And she taught me that if you're going to be in this business, you really need to be in this business. You can't fake it. Yep. You've got to absolutely love it. But whatever role you're doing.
You didn't do the Clockwork Orange rendition.
No, I did not.
That's
good
not
Lord.
Good for guests.
No, it's not. We did the cleaned up version.
Right, okay.
But it was just an example for me of, okay, if you're going to be in this business, you better bring that to the table every single day in this business, because it's a business that you can't dip your toe into the swimming pool. You've got to fully jump in and immerse yourself in this business. And it kind of taught me from an early stage that, hey, this is something you're going to love. I feel that I'm subservient, so I love to service people. The greatest times in my career, as I look back across the last 19 years, have been when I've helped other people achieve their goals. And I get to do that a lot while I'm in this business. So it's in my DNA now, and as long as Hilton will have me, I'm not going anywhere.
That's absolutely fantastic. So make sure we extend this guy's contract, would you, Mr. Nacetta?
Do I have a contract?
Yeah.
Chris, are you listening?
I know, yeah. Okay. So how did you move from the property level into corporate world.
Yeah, so I had an opportunity to, and it was very strategic, actually, Glenn.
Right. By this point, you probably figured this is my life's
operationally,
journey.
I'd been through, front desk, I'd been through sales, I'd been through the GM roles, I'd been multitask general manager, and I said, okay, if you really want to influence performance, you've got to get above the property. I had the fortunate opportunity to work for 8 years on Hilton's management side. So I got to see it not from the brand side, but from the management company side. So when the brand pushed down initiatives, I was the one that got to catch them on the property level and then disperse them in a portfolio of about 123 hotels. So it taught me to speak owner, and it taught me to speak management company representative rather than brand. And I think it served me extremely well in my career.
And that's a great way to pull it up to what you're doing now, because you really need to have that blend of management, ownership, persona, with that brand, the identity as well.
You do. And, one of the things that I think there is a definitive difference between talking brand, which I do very well, and talking owner, which I'm learning. So I would consider myself bilingual now, but the two languages are distinctly different. And the way in which the lens by which you look at those languages is distinctly different. One of the things that I did when I took this role 9 months ago is I took a hard look at the financials of the brand.
Right.
So development costs, FF&E costs, land costs, square footage, size of rooms, mix of rooms. And again, I went out to 7 of our most affluent owners and developers, and I said, I want you to break this product down with me. And we sat across boardroom tables and we penciled out financial models to say, okay, if you're on a 5-year hold, this is what it looks like. If you're on a long-term hold, this is what it looks like. And the language that I learned, Glenn, over the course of those 7, 8, 9 meetings was absolutely phenomenal, and it will serve me well as we roll out initiatives moving forward for Homewood, is to make sure that they resonate with owners and developers, because that's the gig, right? I mean, I don't have the money, it's their money, and this is a personal investment. They're in it to make money, we're in it to make fees. The match made in heaven if you get it right.
Oh, right. Yeah, and I've spent my whole career reporting on the loving relationship between owners and brands.
Absolutely, mate. Absolutely, and it's great. And Hilton's always done a fantastic job of listening, but I think we've kind of dialed it up a little bit more to say, hey, let's listen and listen and listen. And then let's act. I have a phenomenal Owners Advisory Council. I've got 12 of the most affluent and phenomenal people that I work with on the Advisory Council. And anything that we do moving forward, we funnel through them. So there's nothing moving forward that we don't get their lens through. And it's a phenomenal
Well, that's
group
really
of people.
so critical, because I remember when I first came into this business, it was almost like there were two different industries
no question,
that the
mate.
brands and the owners were in, right? I remember back in the when Homewood first started, their 12 fair franchising points, for example, right now. And now it's great to see that isn't as front and center anymore because of initiatives such as you're doing by bringing in those leading owners to help dictate the changes and the future of the brand.
Well, and there's never more, and you can imagine that the concern is if you're brought into an initiative or a project on the back end to verify that it's okay, we should never have done that. We should bring them in on the front end. So here's what we're thinking. Help us through the process so that the end result becomes a blend of what's great for the brand and what's great for owners. And we've had a tremendous amount of success, especially with Homewood, with doing that.
So we're sitting here on the cusp of 500 hotels, which will be in just a few weeks we expect. And we're here in a property that's been open for 1 year now.
Indeed.
So tell me a little bit about what that deal was like bringing it together and how, I know it was done and opened before you took this role, but how did the whole thing come together and create what you think is a template for how you see you moving forward in your position?
Yeah, it's a fantastic question. So this was the first ground-up dual build in Mexico. We have a conversion property in Santa Fe, but for Homewood Suites and Hampton, this was the first dual build. And what I love about this, Glenn, is that this is prototypical of nature. So meaning, if you want to get it right, these guys got it right. So 69 beautifully appointed suites. Some are one bedrooms, some are queen studios. The square footage, anywhere between 31 square meters and 38, 37 square meters. So the room size is really conducive of growth here based on sheer footprint.
Right. And for those of you that are watching the video edition of this, we're actually filming this in one of those suites right now.
Absolutely. Blended space. One of the things that I think this hotel has done exceptionally well is to take advantage of the shared spaces of our dual brand concept. So you think in terms of elevating the guest experience. one food and beverage area, which is accentuated with a bar. All of those areas are activated. So you've got beautiful seating areas around. So not only do the Hampton guests experience an elevated experience, but the Homewood guests get an elevated experience. One of the things this hotel has done beautifully in design is some of the local flavors. Mm-hmm. So you wouldn't find the design concepts here in the States, which is exactly what we should be doing. We should be allowing for flexibility locally to really infuse the guest experience. Because I would hate to think somebody comes to Monterrey, Mexico, and has the same experience in Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Isn't that what we've been trying to get away from? And Indeed. I speak in aggregate of the entire business. But that's the kind of the trick right there. How do you create something that's part of a brand that has that guarantee that the customer can have expectations while still programming it in such a way that it feels free-form, but constrains to the psychological tenets that people think about the brand.
Yeah, and it's Homewood is a perfect example of that, right? So if I'm staying for 9 days in Monterrey, I want to feel like I'm staying for 9 days in Monterrey.
Right.
Not only from a product perspective, but a service perspective. And one of the things that we're doing exceptionally well with Homewood is we've really looked at the cultural service aspect of the brand. So if you're in Seattle, you should feel like you've been serviced by Seattle. I'll give you an example. I had one of my favorite check-in experiences in Seattle.
Oh, yeah?
Walked up to the front desk. I didn't get asked if I was checking in. The fella behind the front desk assumed that I was checking in because I had luggage.
Because you walked in the door.
Well, absolutely right. I'm not here to do anything else. But he had a full-on arm tattoo. He had a nose piercing.
Right.
But it was Seattle.
Right.
And he just, the experience was absolutely exceptional. And we think we can over-index on that experience of service, that experience of culture. When you are somewhere for an extended length of time, you become part of the community. And the community and the flavor of the community should be kind of the way in which you service it.
Right.
And we're going to index on that moving forward, is really influence the service culture based on local. Monterrey is a great example of that. I was picked up at the airport last night by the general manager. To my surprise, walked through customs, walked through immigration, and there's Abraham standing there. Mr. Colling, it's great to see you.
That's amazing.
Nearly floored me.
Yeah.
But it's not me.
I had a hitchhike over here.
Did you? Yeah, well, I was going to say, did we get you an Uber or something?
No, I was met also, and it was such a delight because, the fact is that Mexico isn't an alien country, but it's still not Seattle. So you walk off the plane, everything's just a little bit different, and just to have somebody there to greet you, it just made it so much easier.
Friendly face, warm greeting, lovely handshake and hug.
Yep.
It was like, it wasn't me. I've just got a feeling they do this with every guest that graces their front door. And it was just spectacular to experience. So a really good example of localizing the service culture, accentuating that with the design of the brand, and you come out with a product like this that is really resonating with the consumer.
Now, one of the things that is interesting to me is that there's also a Hampton Inn that's part of this complex. And we're not talking about the Hampton Inn today, but you are doing shared public spaces. And I'm seeing an evolution of what's happening now with dual-branded hotels. They used to be across the street from each other. Then it would be in the same parking lot. Then it would be in one building, but they were not really connected. Then they might have a pool that was connected. Now it just seems like it's one seamless experience. You don't even have to go to two different front desks.
It is.
How does that work from... I'm sure the guests have no problem with it. They love it. It must be liberating for you folks now that you've made this epiphany that you don't have to keep everything siloed.
No, and it's been an evolution, right? So to your point, they were close in proximity, then they were linked. So we butted two buildings up and we said, oh, great, there's a dual build. Mm-hmm. But there were no efficiencies in the dual build. You simply butted a building up together. Then we went with blended. So a couple of the areas you can blend. Makes sense to blend a swimming pool, a fitness center, maybe some of the meeting space. But good Lord, let's keep the breakfast separate. We think there are opportunities like Monterrey where you can merge that experience.
I thought that was incredible that you put them together because even in dual-branded concepts that seemed very together, that breakfast still kept people apart.
Yeah.
And I always think about the people that aren't staying at the Homewood, they were staying at the other one, they would have to look over and go, oh, I want those upgraded eggs.
Absolutely, yeah, exactly right. So now we brought, you bring the complex together in a hybrid fashion. The guest experience gets elevated. One of the things that we are doing is we're nodding to each signature item. So Hampton's got its waffles. They are highlighted at the breakfast, and then the baked goods.
I had one today. I hope you didn't feel like I was cheating on you.
No, not at all, my friend. But as long as you had a bakery good too from Homewood. Did you do
Yes.
that? Glenn ate well this morning.
I carb loaded before this.
No, so it's a great example of kind of making good sense, blending shared spaces together that make good sense from an operational perspective.
Right.
And then on the flip side of that, you've got to look at it operationally. From the product we put in the rooms to the sheets we use to the soap we use.
Right.
If you can blend all of that together, there are operational efficiencies too. And then if you think about it in terms of culturally, how do you blend two definitive cultures together?
Right.
So the friendliness of Hampton, the
Right.
be at home culture of Homewood. What resonates is that there is an overarching theme of hospitality. So they tend to take the best attributes of both cultures, blend them together. And Monterey is a great example of how that kind of manifests
So
itself.
how's that working behind the curtain? Because you're in the All Suites division, and this other brand is not in that division.
Not at all. No. But, the great thing today is that we have what we would call a mega category.
Right.
Run by mega head Bill Duncan. I think you know
Yep.
Bill. So he's the big guy now.
Right.
And he's taken
And his head is not unusually large, as he's intimating here.
I did not say that. Absolutely. We have some great images of him.
Right.
But what Bill has done a phenomenal job
Yep.
of is he's taken Focus Service and All Suites and kind of grouped them together into this 6-branded category where there are tremendous takeaways from each of the individual brands that we can kind of collectively put together. This is a great example of that. So we take the best attributes of Hampton, the best attributes of Homewood, we blend them together in a complex like this, both culturally and physically, and it really resonates today.
Yeah, I think it's a big win for
It is.
owners. It's definitely a win for you folks. And I know with this particular property, you're delivering a lot of room nights here, and you seem to have really got this formula worked out.
Yeah, well, it all comes. You can build an asset like this, Glenn, but really, truly, it's glass and it's brass.
Right.
What it really comes down to is the team. And I think when you get an example of somebody like Abraham picking me up at the airport, it's kind of an example of leading by what I do. And you can see it all the way through the folks at the hotel here, from breakfast this morning to dinner last night when we arrived to somebody I met in the gym this morning. It just is electrifying right through the property. But it comes down to leadership.
Wow.
I do think our brands are GM-centric in nature, right? If you've got an engaged general manager, the rest trickles down. If you unfortunately don't have an engaged general manager, it trickles down.
Right. So I'm amazed. You went to the gym this morning. Out of all of that, that's what I picked up.
Well, you know what I'm trying to keep up with? Adrian Curry.
Oh,
you know,
God.
you know that little brand that he runs, that Home 2 brand?
Yeah,
I
never
try
heard
to
of it.
keep up with him. No, I never heard of it either.
Check out our podcast that we did last month with Adrian. You can
Yeah.
also find a video version of that on novacancynews.com. So where is all of this heading? What do you expect for the brand? What do you expect for yourself?
Yeah, so for the brand, phenomenally bright future. So from the positioning work that we're doing to reimagine the brand culturally, to the flexibility plan that we have in place currently, to the design review that we've currently got in place, looking at some of the nuances on the financials that we worked at. We've got a pipeline of 106 hotels right now.
Awesome.
So the brand is in really, really good shape. The great thing about the brand from a product perspective is we're coming from a position of strength. You know, I love doing this work when you're on top. It would be tough doing this work if you've already seen a bit of a decline, but that's not the case for Homewood. It's really in a great spot right now. Operating performance is exceptional.
Right, and that's one of the things that we're starting to see right now industry-wide is things might be getting a little shaky out
no
there,
question.
shakier for others depending on what market you're in. But the extended stay segment seems to immunize yourself from a lot of those things. Besides from the cultural shifts that we've been talking about, of course, there's the obvious stuff. People doing relocations, people coming in for training. Then, of course, there's divorces and disasters and
It
all
never
of these
stops.
things.
Well, and I think Homewood is always a great addition to a portfolio of hotels because it's kind of, if you want to hedge your bets, we're kind of recession proof. We choose not to participate
That's right.
based on the mix of business that we grab. So for us, the history would, we're on a 10-year climb. So it's inevitable eventually that we're going to start seeing a bit of a decline. For me personally, hey, listen, there is not a day that I don't wake up and I feel privileged to do what I do.
Yep.
There's 17 of us within Hilton, 17 global heads.
Wow.
I'm one of them. When I moved to the States at 18 years old, would I ever expect to do what I do today? No.
No.
So
Well, how could you?
It's a bit a bit of a dream, mate.
Who grows up saying, mommy, daddy, I want to be the global head of a hotel brand?
Never.
Right?
Right. I didn't even know there was such a position.
I had no idea. Other than like fireman and astronaut, I didn't really know anything that was out here.
So I wanted to be an actor, and hey, so it kind of worked out. But phenomenal, there's, as I said, just it's a privilege to do what I do. It really is going to be a privilege to run this brand or help run this brand for the next 30 years to come, because it's in a great position. So, but I got a question for you. So Disney.
Yeah.
So I'm between you and Disney.
Yes, because as you guys are listening to this podcast, I'm on vacation. I haven't had a vacation in 2 years, and the kids requested that we go to Walt Disney World. So if you're listening to this, picture me sweating and eating a giant turkey leg.
So Harry Potter's in your future?
Yeah, I'll be going to Universal and checking out the Harry Potter stuff. I want to catch that new Hagrid's motorbike adventure.
Indeed. And the kids are 15?
What's that?
Twins, 15?
Yeah, 15-year-old twin boys.
Yeah. Are they alike?
No, they're different. One's like me, one's like my wife's family.
So you have a favorite?
Yes.
I'm not going to ask which one, though. Yeah, right. That would be tough to...
My favorite is the one who's not angry at me that day.
There you go. Absolutely. Absolutely.
But it's weird because I do all this traveling and stuff like that. So I don't really have to fight with my kids because I'm like a divorced dad, but I don't have to pay alimony. I come in, I'm like, hey, how's everybody? We go out to dinner, and then I leave again and leave my wife to do all the hard work. It's really
I do the
sucks
same.
for her.
I do the same. What I learned early in my career is don't go home on a Friday after traveling all week and try to dictate what the weekend looks like.
Yeah.
Just humbly say, sweetheart, it's nice to be home. What do you have planned for me?
Right. So, okay. So practically speaking, how do you balance, family life and a career over time? Because you've raised a family already as you were growing in your position. I know there's a lot of people out there that struggle existentially with what they should do.
Well, I'm glad I didn't get it right? So I was with
who does, right?
I was with a competitor for 14 years, and I've been with Hilton for 19. And I made many a stub of my toe early in my career. I think today, for me, balance is essential, right? So I think you've got to take care of you, and you have to be the priority. So I'm a fanatic regarding exercise.
Right.
I sleep well. Mm-hmm. I try to reduce the amount of stress that I go through. I try to look at this role through the lens of enjoyment rather than if you really dig down deep and you start looking at what it is you're responsible for,
right.
It can be a scary role.
Right.
So for me, it's been a wonderful adventure to say you're only as good as you. So in order to show up every day and be you better take care of you. And I've learned that in my career. As I said, I
all right. So this is the thing that always messes me up. I feel like I have to work, but I know I should be exercising more. I know I should be doing these other things more. How do you let yourself do it without fear that it's going to interfere with your job and your career?
No, it's great. So people would say I'm somewhat selfish. So the first thing I pack when I leave on a trip is my exercise equipment.
Right.
That's the priority. So I'll forget the blue suit, but I can at least get to the gym. So that's my priority when I travel. Secondly, I schedule relentlessly workout time. So when I'm on the road, I have on my Outlook calendar, workout. And I usually call myself something like, hey, chubby, you better get down to the gym today. Because it's kind of a nice incentive to say, hey, because you had a couple of nice Pacific Gold beers last night with Glenn, you better go work it off in the morning.
Right.
So I'm relentless about it. And I think it's okay to be selfish when it's about your own personal health.
And what I understand is if you are selfish about that, it allows you and gives you the strength to be that personality that serves others.
Yeah, we do something. Hilton's got a wonderful Thrive program. And one of the things I love about the Thrive program is it really drives the fact that...
What is the Thrive program?
Well, the Thrive is really, truly what we're talking about is how do you have the ability to make sure that the best you shows up to your work every single day.
Right.
But there's a balance that has to be in place in order to do that. I find no use... if you've had 4 hours of sleep and you've got a 2-hour meeting with me, that 4 hours of sleep is not going to bring the best you to the meeting with me.
No, I'd be lucky if I survived the meeting.
Absolutely.
And I wouldn't be thinking about how I could be good in the meeting. I'd be thinking about not closing my eyes.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we think that the ability to make sure that you get exercise, that you get rest, that you have a chance to recover we do a lot of work as it relates to athletes. If you think about the corporate athlete of today, I love the fact that corporate athletes of today, I work 99% of the time.
Right.
I recover very little.
Uh-huh.
And I take time to practice very little.
Right.
We work. If you take a look at the physical athlete, they perform very little. They recover tremendously,
right,
and they have a tremendous amount of time for practice. And I think that we're trying to reimagine the corporate athlete of today to say you better have a good balance between those three worlds, because if you don't, you probably don't have a long career ahead of you.
All right, so I'm going to work towards a 3-hour work week.
Come on, we can knock it off after this. I'll see you in the gym later.
I love it. Any final thoughts, Rick, before we
No, one I would say is thank you for taking the time.
Sure, my pleasure. This is great.
One of the things for me is that, as I said earlier, this is a privilege for me in this role. The brand is in such phenomenal shape right now that the journey ahead, the next 30 years looks awfully bright for this brand. I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to kind of share with the team here and the viewers, because there's nothing I like to talk about more, well, maybe family, than Homewood Suites. So I appreciate it. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, and congratulations to you. Congratulations to Hilton on nearly 500 hotels open. So the Homewood Suites story, I think, is just beginning.
Thank you, mate. I appreciate it.
How can we find you?
You can find me, I tell you what, you can find me at rick.colling, Colling, at hilton.com. You could call me in my office, 901-374-5795. I love to hear from folks. So one of the things I'm learning is listen a lot. So give me a call or send me an email. Love to engage.
Excellent. I'll be calling you and asking, and spamming you all the time with lots of phone calls.
You do it, my friend.
All right. Excellent. I love it. I want to thank everybody for listening today. Rick was so much fun to talk to. I mean, it just shows that you can take care of yourself and you can help build a big brand out there. And boy, is it fun to watch where they're going. Rick, so before we wrap up here, now I got to say, what other countries do you want to get into?
We are doing a lot of expansion, so we're looking at Europe right now, obviously.
But I know you haven't actually gone in there yet, right?
No.
The whole idea was to get everything figured out first and then kind of...
So Lima, Peru, Costa Rica, South America, all of those are on our radar. And we've got developments in each of those. So we're...
Awesome.
Great spots to visit, so I'll send you invites.
Great. I love it. And you can find me at Traveling Glenn. Of course, check out novacancynews.com. And if you haven't subscribed to the podcast, what are you thinking about? Go ahead. Do it on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, wherever finer podcasts are found. You'll find the No Vacancy Network. Check out this show. Check out our Business and Hotel show. Check out Checking In with Anthony and Glenn, which I do with Anthony Melchiori of TV's Hotel Impossible. Lots of great shows, all to educate, empower, and entertain. And I'll be back next week. That is on, unless I decide to move here to Monterrey, Mexico, and have some chicharrones. See you guys next week.